The first fair division method that we're going to take a look at is the method of sealed bids. This is for discrete situations, meaning that we cannot divide up these items any farther. So again, that could be a house, a car, art, jewelry. Think about a situation where maybe you had a relative who died who left you and your siblings or you and your cousins a bunch of items, and you're trying to figure out who gets what. So the general idea for the method of sealed bids is each individual assigns a numeric value, like a dollar amount, to a bunch of objects. You divide the total into fair shares, and then your final allocation will be either getting the objects or cash equivalent. So this does require some money to change hands, like as a side deal, as a part of the compromise. So we have a few steps here in our method. So first we have the bidding. So each player independently assigns values to each of the objects. This is supposed to be an honest evaluation of the object's worth. And when we say sealed bids, that means that you are making these assessments privately. No one knows what you think everything is worth. The second step is the allocation. So think of your sealed bids as like a silent auction. So for each item, whoever had the highest bid, thought that that item was worth the most, gets that item. Then our third step is the first settlement. Okay, so depending on what each player got, you could have gotten an object or an item, or you could have gotten nothing. But you might either owe money if you got more than your fair share, or you could be owed money, meaning you will get cash because you didn't get anything or you got a lower priced item. So to calculate how much each player believes their share is worth, you add all of their bids and divide by the number of players. So that tells you what each player's fair share is, and these will typically be different amounts for different players. If the total value of the items that the player gets is greater than their fair share, then that player will pay the estate the difference. Okay, so if I get an item that is worth more than my fair share, then I will have to pay cash to even everything out. If the total value of the items that the player gets is less than their fair share, then the player receives the difference in cash. Then you want to determine what the surplus cash is. So there should be some leftover money after we've done this first settlement. People who got too much paid the difference. People who didn't get anything received cash. So the surplus is the money that is left over after everyone has a fair share. Then the next step in our method is to divide the surplus. So we take that surplus money that we just discussed in the last step and divide it equally among the players. So this will be cash. So that means in our final settlement, which is our fifth step, that each player gets a fair share in items, either plus or minus cash, and then the bonus for the division of the surplus. So the last step is our final settlement. This is obtained by adding the surplus money to our first settlement. So a couple extra pieces of information. With this method, everyone has to have cash. They have to have enough money to play the game. If you are going to make an honest bid on the item, then you have to be prepared to possibly win all of those items and have to pay a decent amount in cash. If they do not have cash available, a player is definitely at a disadvantage because they cannot make honest bids. Each player must be willing to accept money, and by money I mean cash, as a substitute for an item. No item can be considered priceless. And then the last assumption is that the players have no useful information about other people's value systems until all of the bids have been written down. The main thing is you need cash. So let's take a look at two examples of this method. The first one we are going to walk through pretty slowly. So we have 4 siblings who are dividing up an estate consisting of a house, a Rolls-Royce, and a Picasso painting. Okay, so let's pretend that their parents were very wealthy and they have these items to divide up after their parents have died. For some reason, their parents didn't figure this out and put it in a will beforehand. So each of the players has to make a bid in dollars for each of the items, giving their honest assessment of the actual value of each item. And each player is going to write this down, put it in an envelope, so that they can't change their answer later. So we have Arthur, Betty, Carla, and Dave, and they have each said how much they think each of these items, the house, Rolls-Royce, and the Picasso, are worth. So that's our first step. The second step is the allocation. So each item will go to the highest bidder for that item. If there's a tie, then we'll do a coin flip. So the house. Who thought the house was worth the most money? Well, that would be Betty. So Betty gets the house. What about the Rolls-Royce? Who thought the car was worth the most? Well, that would be Dave. So Dave is going to get the car. And then the Picasso. Arthur thought the Picasso was worth the most, so that's what he gets. Okay, so that is our allocation. Now we have to even everything up. So for the first settlement, it depends on what items a player gets, whether they owe money or whether they are owed money. So to determine that, we first need to know what each player's fair share is. So to do that, we need to add up their total bids and then divide by the total number of players, which is 4, to determine each player's fair share. So if we go back, we look here. We want to see in total how much did Arthur think all of this stuff was worth. So 220,000 plus 40,000 plus 280,000 is going to be 540,000. So Arthur thought that everything total was worth $540,000. So divide that by 4, and that means that Arthur needs to get at least $135,000 because that's what is his fair share. And we do the same thing with each of his siblings. Okay, so we add up Betty's total bids, divide by 4. Add up Carla's total bids, divide by 4. Add up Dave's total bids, divide by 4. So then the next step is to look at the item that they won, how much that was worth, minus their fair share to figure out how much money they either owe or should receive. So if we go back, Arthur is getting the Picasso. He thought that was worth $280,000. So Arthur gets the Picasso. He thought that was worth $280,000. Well, his fair share is $135,000. So he has gotten $145,000 more than his fair share, which means he is going to owe money back to the estate. Okay, so the painting that he got is worth more than his fair share, so he has to pay some cash to even everything out. So, doing the same thing with the other siblings. Betty got the house, which she thought was worth $250,000. Her fair share is only $130,000, so she owes $120,000 in cash. Carla got none of the items, so her fair share, which is $123,000, she deserves all of that amount in cash. And then Dave got the car, which he valued at $52,000. His fair share is $110,000. So he has gotten less than his fair share. So he deserves some of that in cash. So he should get $58,000 in cash. So now we are on to the division of the surplus. So we want to look at this amount of money that each of these siblings either owes or receives. So Arthur owes $145,000. Betty owes $120,000. So Arthur and Betty are both paying cash. They are putting cash back in the pile of things. Well, Carla gets $123,000 of that pile of cash, and Dave gets $58,000 of that pile of cash, which means we are left with a surplus of $84,000. So we divide that up. So 84,000 divided by 4, each of them gets 21,000 back. So our final settlement, we want to look at what items each sibling got, which Arthur got the Picasso, Betty got the house, Carla got none of the items, and Dave got the car. And then look at their cash, which their cash is going to be based on what they either owed or received in the first settlement, and then taking into account the fact that they get $21,000 on top of that from the surplus. So Arthur owed $145,000, but he gets $21,000 of that back. So he owes $124,000. Betty originally owed $120,000, but she got $21,000 back, so she only owes $99,000. Carla originally got $123,000. She gets another $21,000 from the surplus, so she receives $144,000 in cash. And Dave originally was supposed to get $58,000. He gets an additional $21,000, so he is going to get a total of $79,000 in addition to the car. Now, one way to check your work here is the amount of money that the siblings owe should equal the amount of money that the other siblings receive. So if you add up Arthur and Betty who owe money, that should be equal to the amount of money that Carla and Dave receive. Let's look at one more example. The way I prefer to organize the information for these type of problems is in a chart like this. So we are looking at Ariel, Belle, and Cinderella. They are dividing up 4 pieces of furniture: a dresser, a desk, a vanity, and a tapestry. We have their bids on each of the items. So, who thought the dresser was worth the most? Belle. So Belle gets the dresser, which was $300. Oops, that's the wrong place to write that. It is down here. The desk. Ariel thought the desk was worth the most at $180. The vanity. Cinderella thought the vanity was worth the most at $260. And then the tapestry, Cinderella also thought that was worth the most, so she will get that as well at $500. So her total will be $760. Now, let's go back and see what each princess's total bids was. So Ariel, if you add up her bids, her total was $900. The fair share, there are 3 princesses here, so we're going to divide the total bid by 3 to get the fair share. Add up all of Belle's bids. Her total is also $900, so her fair share is $300. Cinderella's total is $1,200, divided by 3 is $400 for her fair share. All right, so we want to compare the fair share and the item value. Okay, Ariel, her fair share is $300. The item that she got is only worth $180. So that means she needs some cash. So she is going to receive, let me write this out, 300 minus 180, she is going to get $120. Belle, her fair share is 300. The item that she got is 300. So she's good. Cinderella, her fair share is 400. Her items that she has gotten are worth $760. So she owes some money. So 760 minus 400. Cinderella actually owes $360. So Cinderella pays $360 in cash. 120 of that goes to Ariel. Belle gets nothing. So our surplus is going to be $360 that Cinderella paid minus the $120 that goes to Ariel, $240 is our surplus. So we're going to divide that evenly between these three princesses. So the surplus is going to be $80. So our final settlement, Ariel gets the desk and 120 plus $80, so plus $200. Belle gets the dresser and the $80 from the surplus. Cinderella gets the vanity and the tapestry. And then she actually owes $360 minus 80, which is $280. And as a check, Ariel and Belle, they get $200 plus $80, which is $280, and that's how much Cinderella owes. So you can always check that those values match. So that is the method of sealed bids for this situation.